From the beech tree of Piglionico, which smokes of charcoal pits and shakes of breeze, on huge Spania, I see you, appearing in the pure and quiet morning, and with no hesitation feeding the burning desire of your peak. For you I climb. Not the hard, impossible walk of Ronchi, which harms my feet and tires up my chest. And, arrived to the peak, I exult of victory and admire the huge space that in the sun of the passes of the cerulean Apennine extends, till there where the sea is blue. This way, in 1914, the poet Olinto Dini wrote his odes to the mountain of Garfagnana, the Apon Alps and the Apennines, a variety of inked green and charm. Time and process of development did not compromise them at all. They define in their extraordinary beauty dominating this ancient land, where people and culture lay proud of their history, art and tradition, heritage of the Grand Eastern Dukedom, whose domination ruled Garfagnana until the unity of Italy. Castelnuovo, which is the country seat of Garfagnana, keeps the majesty and severity of its places in the ancient medieval fortress. A collection of evidences witnesses the Tuscan origin of the city, that was followed by the Ligurian and Roman culture. On the opposite elevation, the 16th century fortress of Montalfonso apprises to witness also the military attention the Estensis had in the Provence, in the boundary with the Republic of Lucca, with the fortress of Verrucole, in the district of Saint Romano. An interesting example of unification of the two medieval fortresses by a long curtain of walls of the 16th century, when the Estensis started to recognize the defensive system of the province. It represents a typical example of military architecture impregnable in those times. From the country of Verrucole, passing through Orzaglia, you can easily raise the park of Orecchiella, protected natural reserve that represent varied environments abundant of flora and fauna. With some luck, you might be encountered by the huge flight of the golden eagle that has come back to nest on these peaks, or by the silent swaggering of an elusive wolf that is watching us, resolute but also scared by the human presence. In the vicinity of the peak, there is a botanical garden, Pania di Corfino, a protected structure of about 5,000 quarter meters that provides documents and preserves the native vegetable species of the territory, among which many ones would not be able to reproduce and acclimatized somewhere else because of their ecological needs. Rising by the left side of the valley, after some minutes, you can pass by Poggio, little suburb in the district of Camporgiano, which owns in the locality La Villa the church of St. Biagio, typical Romanesque structure, with roof with truss and upholstery of slabs and apsis towards east, built approximately in the year 1000, that in the Middle Ages had the privilege of the baptismal font, also with Pieve Fosciana and Gallicano. It is a very short walk separating us from the valley, in the striking view of the pits of the finest marble of Italy, stolen to the mountain by hard work handed down from the father to son. Entering the suburbs, you can be welcomed by the Church of St. Agostino, interesting Romanesque structure with 2 naves and limestones, apses and upholstery of slabs. The building, originary of the 8th century, was dedicated to Saint Regulo. It got the present appellation in 1300, when the Agostinian nuns came into its possession and instituted the belonging monastery. A little bit below the glacial hollow of Campocatino, wide terracing characterized by the presence of unique houses of stones, testimony of the seasonal residence of the shepherds moving from the close rangelands to the Tuscan Maremma, appears the oratory of Saint Vivian, on the sides of the mountain in front of the pits, excavated in the rocks. In the very simple temple, just 1 altar in marble. Not too far, the cave of Praia seems to have incised in the hard rock the scenes of penitence of the popular saint. Anyway, Bali is also known for the lake of the same name, which hides the submerged suburb of Fabriche, once a modest village in the district of Caregine, nice and relaxing Alpine suburb which overlooks the lake, where peculiar place of the wonderful views on the Apon Alps are goal of hikers that rise the peaks. And in winter time, they give a chance of skiing. Just like in Garfagnana, it is possible to ski in Casone di Profecchia, in the Apennines. Testimony of the very ancient farming civilization, centuries-old forests of chestnut trees, from which they obtain awesome sweet chestnuts and flour of chestnut that becomes nacho and castagnaccio, biscuits and bread. With the spelt, the legendary cereal sacred to the gods, and wet, the chestnuts represent treasure of rare taste, which show off the purity of the environment. A miracle of harmony that passes by the mill and the oven, charm of activity that, until last century, were essential for the human feeding. A handed-down art from generation to generation, ancestral actions, experiences learned after sustaining the old parent for a lifetime. This art was then produced by the skillful hands of the young miller. The oven is born into the most ancient tradition to the handed-down arts of the bakers and grandmothers from the old times, but everlasting in their flavor and genuineness. A irresistible bond, wood oven and bread. It is still the farming tradition of the mountains that defines the well-known cooking of Garfagnana. Simple, genuine courses, frugal, like the hard work of the fields demanded, but rich and healthy. So we can find mushrooms, cheese, sausages combined with the courses of the farming tradition, such as spelt flour of chestnuts, that are distinguished for the acknowledgement of tutelage. Passing through Camporgiano, where from the square you can see from far the 15th century rock built in a naturally fortified place. Our visit to the valley, just begun, moves to the high Garfagnana. Forests of turkey, oak and beech trees and the boiling of silver water embrace the traveler and take him to a universe of absolute nature. The meeting with ancient suburb is one of the reasons of biggest awesomeness. Little villages with houses that are collected around the church, likely asking for protection, and where artistic masterpieces are a testimony of a deep faith, but also a spirit of rivalry among the rural population in a sort of fulfillment of the tasted soul. So, Versigliana, suburb of the district of Piazza Cerchio, proudly shows the important 15th century triptych. Madonna with Child and on the sides of Saint Prospero and Nicola, by Pietro from Talada, Emilian artist, author of many works in the whole valley. While Sant'Anastasio, another suburb of the district, preserves another awesome triptych, the Virgin with the Four Saints, credited to the Milanese painter Bernardino del Castelletto. From over here, the Apon Alps look alive, a real paradise, very close to the peaks of Pisanino and the Mount Cavallo, whose feet can see rising Garfagnana. At 1 kilometer from the suburb, on a rocky overhanging peak on the lake of Gran Molazzo, stands out the old church, brought back to the ancient awesomeness by the generous work of the inhabitants. We are in the district of Minucciano, ancient belonging of the Republic of Lucca, where still survives the old circular tower, already known in medieval times. Not far from the village, on the mountain passage that unites the Apon Alps to the Apennines, arises the sanctuary of the Blessed Virgin of Assistance, dated back to the end of the 15th century. Close to the hospice, 3 steel statues were found, ancient anthropomorphous representation that since the 2nd millennium before Christ until the Romanization represent the expression of an old faith. They are today preserved in the Museum of Statues of Steel of Pontremoli. The canyons, the deep caves, the valleys, but also the peaks, tell us about an anguished geological history that make of the Apon Alps mountain chain a kind of open-air geological and paleontologic museum. Rising up the Passo dei Carpinelli, a mountain passage that links the Apon Alps to the Apennines, on the upland of Argenia stands out the Sanctuary of Madonna of the Guard, and devotive bell, built in 1982, dedicated to the fallen of all the wars, commemorating the stylized themes of the Penemoze, the fallen Alpine in the war. The shrine, inside the altar's marble block, preserved the soil of the River Don, martyrdom of many young men of the Alpine units. The hugeness of the view, the serenity, and the religious silence contribute to create a magical atmosphere of a part of Garfagnana. Let's get back to our steps towards the country seat. Passing through Tuscany in the district of San Romano, in the valley bottom of the river Serchio, hanged on two diabase rocks, we reach Villetta, where stands out the village of Sambuca, medieval seat of the Counts of Bacciano, with houses that still show off some 15th century structural and decorative works. Descending towards the low Garfagnana, we are still staying in Villa Collemandina, a center preserving an important artistic patrimony. The complex of the colonnade and the church of Saint Sisto preserve 16th century works of the family of the Lucanian artists of Civitali. The village was rebuilt after the violent earthquake of 7th September of 1920 that hardly hit Garfagnana. This earthquake caused loss of human lives and huge damages. But fortunately, the first arch dike came out unscathed. It was 1914 and it still is working. Also, the suburbs of Caprignano and Bergela, in the respective district of Sant Romano and Minucciano, were subjected to irreparable damage. They still preserve the ruins of the tragical event. Garfagnana also owns another record about a bridge. From the enterprising lines, 90 meters high on the stream Corfino, the bridge Vergai was one of the first architecture that was built in reinforced concrete in the early 30s. Just before entering the bridge, on the right, you can see the entrance of the Hall of the Fires, one of the 100 caves of Garfagnana, among which the most known and supplied for tourists in the Wind Cave in the district of Vergemoli. In the district, a striking vision is offered by the suburb of Sassarosso, standing out at the base of a rocky comb built by calcareous sedimentary layers, rich of ammonites, which during the millennium gave to the rocks the typical wine color, the red Collemandina. Since the ancient time, men extract from little caves the stones that were necessary for building their houses, giving a chromatic, natural and unique effect. On the 19th century path that connected Modena to Lucca uprises the fortified village of Castiglione, until 1824 Lucanian enclave in the Estance Garfagnana. The turret walls, completely preserved, enclose the old church of St. Michael, already known in the 12th century. The 14th century table of Madonna with Child of the Lucanian painter Giuliano di Simone, a tabernacle by Matteo Civitali, and a wooden crucifix of the half of 1300. These are works of great value and pride for the community. And every year, on Holy Thursday, the commemoration of the rising of Jesus to the Calvary, called procession of the Crocioni, recalls thousands of people, a celebration whose origin gets lost in the dawn of time. The hooded Christ, impersonated by a man whose identity will keep secret, dressed in a white coat with a crown of thorns on the head, chains on feet, and the cross on the shoulders, followed by Roman-dressed people, walks barefoot on the paved roads of Castelnuovo, in a simulation of the journey towards Calvary.
Ti adoriamo, Cristo, e ti benediciamo, perché con la tua santa croce hai redento il mondo.
A representation rich of respectful meditation by the faithful that follow it, intense and shared because the one who impersonates Christ takes charge of his own and the other's penitence and sufferance. But the Christianity of the regions find a moment of great intensity in the sanctuary of Saint Pellegrino in Alpe, suburb that marks the boundary, not only administrative but also geographical and cultural between Tuscany and Emilia. With remote origins, the first reliable information related to the belonging hospital, place of assistance and recovery for travelers and peregrines that overpassed this point of the Apennine date back to 1100. The building encloses a wonderful small 15th century sepulchral temple by Matteo Civitali that originally held the remains of the Saint Pellegrino and Bianco, hermits of uncertain story with a great popular devotion. The complex also owns the ethnographic museum Don Luigi Pellegrini, one of the most important collections of objects of material culture of the center of Italy. The collection develops in 14 rooms, with evidences mostly dating back to the early 19th century until today. The material are divided in sections which reproduce the working environment and the daily life: cellar, bedroom, farming work, spinning and weaving, the cobbler's workshop, workshop of the village, works factory, the blacksmith's workshop and mill. From San Pellegrino it's possible to descend down the valley bottom, following the old Via Vandelli, 180 kilometers of road, passing through Apennine and Appian passages at high altitude. It was made in the half of 1700 by the Duke Francesco III d'Este to connect directly Modena to the city of Massa. Then we reach Pieve Fosciana, that in High Middle Age was the most important center of spread of Christianity in the valley, with its plebanial church. Surviving to witness the importance a baptismal tank hidden under an hanging made of white and red marble. Two beautiful statues of glazed terracotta, the Blessed Virgin and the Archangel Gabriel, 15th century works of the Florentine sculptor Benedetto da Maiano, enriched the artistic plebanial patrimony. Let's continue our itinerary passing through the country seat. In front of the Theatre Alfieri, a jewel of architecture inaugurated the day after the unity of Italy, symbol of a record of a cultural nobility acknowledged in Castelnuovo, as the capital city of the Este province. More than 4 centuries of loyalty to the Duke of Este always repaid the people of Garfagnana with privileges. The old weekly market of Thursday dates back right in 1430, when the inhabitants of the valley met in the village to buy or exchange goods. Today is a tradition that recalls, especially in summertime, tourists and vacationers. A deviation takes us in the district of Foshandra, in the old Three Lands, so called for the presence of the boundaries among the Republic of Lucca, the Este Dukedom and the Florentine state. The rock of Ceserana, another fortress in defense of the Este Garfagnana, preserved inside the Romanesque church of St. Andrew. Interesting are the sculptural decorative components inside the capitals of the apsis pilasters. A territory where the products of the nature are preserved and traditions survive. A little room is the laboratory. It once was used to proficiently wrap custom-made new shoes. Today, it's mainly used to recover the broken ones. But in Garfagnana, you can't be rushing. You need to give yourself all the time to get lost in the extraordinary show of the Apuan Alps. Situated at the slopes of Grove of Pania, uprises the panoramic suburb of Sassi. The church of San Frediano, situated in the highest part of the village, was part of a fortified complex, which still preserved traces of old walls. From this nice suburb in the district of Mollazzana, a short walk in the chestnut trees leads us to the small church of Madonna of Snow, which offers an awesome view of Castelnuovo. So, the main itinerary leads us to Gallicano. An important example of art of Renaissance is in the oratory of St. John Baptizer that Domenico Bertini made build at the end of 1400, next to his birthhouse and not far from the parish St. Jacopo, that dominates the village from the top of the hill. Inside, a big glazed Robbiana terracotta altar piece, representing Madonna with saints recalls all the attention. After overstepping the aqueduct projected by the Lucanian architect Lorenzo Nottolini, here we are in the valley of the stream Turrite di Gallicano, and the glance is attracted by the rocky cliff of the picturesque and striking picture of the sanctuary of Saint Mary and Martyrs, better known as Eremo di Calomini. The primitive church, already known in the 11th century, can be accessed by an old rocky portal and represent a peculiar example of a building in Ebri, a religious architecture that owns other example in the Apuan Alps, where the sacristy, the cenobial cells and the presbytery still preserve the peculiarity of the being excavated in the live rock. On the opposite side, overcome Verney's fraction, you arrive to Trasilico, ancient seat of the vicariate under the Estens, and independent municipality until 1947. The Church of St. Peter holds the 16th century Madonna with Child of Simone Carretta. But in every journey, the surprise always arrives in the end. What is better than ending with a striking and peculiar vision? A unique dusk of the sun on the chaining chromatic shades of this little part of Tuscany, that only in some specific days of the year can be admired from some localities of the valley. Garfagnana, Harmony of Nature and Art.